Good morning, good afternoon, and evening to all in the gaming community. Thank you for joining me once again for another YouTube video. And today we're going into a topic that I don't usually get into, but today I want to speak about the Xbox Showcase, particularly focusing on two main topics that I personally had a huge amount of interest in. Compared to all games, I definitely have the most love and interest in RPGs, and the two games we're going to be speaking about today is Avowed and Starfield, the two flagship RPGs, excluding Fable, that are going to be coming out from Xbox Game Studios. Let's start off right with the hot story that a lot of people are very unhappy and quite angry about. It has been revealed by Todd Howard that on the consoles, the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, respectively on the Series X is going to be 4K 30FPS, and on the Series S we're going to be getting 1440p 30FPS. Very interesting, and depending on who you are, very inflammatory statements. I am one of those people who are definitely offended. Now, considering the generation that we're in, it's 2023. The industry standard for video games released on this next generation of consoles genuinely should be 60 frames per second. Now, for me, this is quite worrying. It's clear to me that over their time developing this game, making this entire experience, they realized at some point that we are not going to be able to maintain this standard of making the game play at 60 FPS on these consoles, which is quite worrying for somebody and a company that is focused on advertising their Xbox Series X to being the most powerful gaming console available on the market. Genuinely worrying stuff, to the point that individuals have begun questioning the power and the validity of the Xbox Series X. If it's unable to play Starfield, a game that's been in development for quite some time, and a game that from the trailers and from the gameplay display we've seen is not a game that is, in terms of graphical fidelity, very impressive in any sort. This would honestly pass as a high quality PlayStation 4 game. If you were to tell anybody else from a different generation, it's not going to blow you away in terms of graphics, and jankiness is just another part of the package that we're generally used to getting from Bethesda. So this causes questions to Phil Spencer. What's the point? What's the point of having the most powerful console if our very own exclusives are not going to be played at 60 FPS? Consider it to the competition. Games such as Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, while they were playing at 30 FPS on the PlayStation 4, that's what was expected for the PlayStation 4, and I'll be honest with you, the fidelity, the high quality graphics, to this day, Uncharted 4, God of War, and those type of games are the best looking games you've ever had on those respective consoles, and not just on the consoles, in general. They were able to tailor make these games for these consoles for them to look absolutely drop dead gorgeous, even if you were to compare it to other PC games. And of course, PC is known to be the top dog in terms of graphical performance, graphical fidelity, and performance. But still, PlayStation exclusives still tend to look absolutely amazing, and that's a testament to the work that they do over at PlayStation Studios. So, for Xbox Game Studios to now set a trend of allowing this next generation of games to have and play at 30 FPS for 4K, I understand. But guys, for 1440p, or even at least for 1080p, at least give us the option. It just sounds very odd, and I found it very interesting because the wording of Todd Howard was that it was more so a creative addition, a creative decision to keep the game at 30 FPS, and to me personally, that just seems like another marketing tactic, another manipulative ploy for us to try and divert the attention away from the poor performance of the game. I'll be honest with you, 30 FPS is something that I even personally endure because I'm playing over on the PlayStation 4 or something of that sort. But, bro, this is the next generation. That's something of the past. We can't be accepting such frames per second. I understand. Starfield has been in development for many years, and I'm under the impression that they perhaps weren't even planning to release it on next-gen consoles. I think this will be a game that will be released that is still on the back end, and a game that was initially released for and made for some consoles or the PlayStation 4 generation, but were welcome to the addition of the next gen. but I definitely think that if development time started with next-gen consoles and next-gen hardware being available to them, and them knowing that the standard is going to be an Xbox Series X, the knowing the standard is going to be an Xbox Series S, they would make totally different decisions. So I want to get your guys' thoughts. How do you guys feel about this? Are you okay with the game only being 30 frames per second? How do you feel about my phrase and my stance that this next generation of consoles, the industry standard needs to be a consistent and smooth 60 FPS, at least for 1080p gaming? Because let's be absolutely honest, the majority of people that are console gaming, that are gaming right now, are still playing on 1080p monitors or 1080p televisions. For me to be playing 1080p and to still be getting 30 FPS on my PlayStation 5 or on my Xbox Series X, for me personally, that's just insulting. Absolutely insulting. And if you're not going to give me a great or good performance, at least have the graphics be absolutely drop dead gorgeous. You have to choose one evil, you have to pick one struggle. Either the graphics have to be absolutely amazing and it makes sense that it's 30 FPS, or the performance needs to be very solid and then we understand why the graphics are on the lower side. We can't have both. We can't have mediocre graphics and a very mediocre frames per second. That's unacceptable conduct, and we as gamers should no longer be accepting that. And now for the second story that I have personally had a huge amount of investment in and quite a substantial amount of disappointment that I've received. It's about the RPG that's supposed to be Obsidian's brand new flagship, supposed to kind of compete with the Bethesda Skyrim and the Elderscrolls series Avowed. Now, a large amount of people also have an issue with the subsequent trailer that we've seen that finally advertises the gameplay that is going to be in Avowed. An immediate thing that people are able to pick up from this is an immediate tone shift, a color scheme shift, an art style shift. From the original cinematic trailer, we saw a dark, gritty, dark fantasy type of game that was going to be competing with these type of Elder Scrolls games. But of course we were thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. We're going to be getting an interesting and mature story, adding on top of that Obsidian's great ability to tell really interesting and cool stories, Obsidian's great player choice, them having extremely cool and very nice amount of diverging parts where player choice actually matters, and hopefully if we were to get some decent combat. This was like a match made in heaven, and from the cinematic trailer, it looked absolutely amazing. If you just look at those images on the cinematic trailer, it looks absolutely amazing. Look at the hand signs when he's doing magic. Now granted, this is a CGI trailer, so it is kind of unfair for us to judge the game on that. But what we definitely can judge Obsidian on is their art style change. It is significantly different to what was advertised about 2 years ago. And I'll be honest with you, bro, this was probably my most interested I've been in an RPG for a very long time. I was very hyped for the release of Avowed, to the point that I even joined the Avowed subreddit and almost even made my own Avowed subreddit because I was just so hyped for the prospect of this game. It seemed very interesting and very exciting. So I was like, damn, this seems pretty cool. Let's get into it. Hopefully there's more information about this game and I can find out more, and I'll be very looking forward to finally playing a cool Obsidian RPG, because if you guys didn't know, RPGs are my favorite genre for sure, but I'll be honest, medieval RPGs are my absolute favorite ever. I definitely love those type of games, very interesting, and I've had a great time with them. My top favorites, I'd say in order, probably number one being Kingdom Come Deliverance. While it definitely is imperfect, that's truly a great game, and probably games such as The Witcher 3, Skyrim, and a couple of other RPGs that aren't necessarily coming to mind. Oh, Dragon Age Inquisition, I really love that game. But a couple of other RPGs that aren't coming to mind that are medieval inspired, but I really enjoyed that entire genre as a whole. And to see this shift is quite disappointing. And of course, when we finally got a real look at the gameplay, some trends that Obsidian usually keeps are unfortunately continuing over here. Looking at the gameplay, it does definitely look on the janky side, and if we're talking graphical fidelity, unfortunately it's not so impressive. Now the argument that a lot of people are bringing is, yo, we know this. Obsidian are not known for having great gameplay. Obsidian are not known for having great graphical fidelity or having games that look absolutely drop dead gorgeous. But in my personal opinion, I think we need to rethink that a little bit. This is the next generation. This game was initially announced when they recently joined Xbox Game Studios. So they have more backing, they have more respect, they have access to resources that they had never had before. That wasn't the case when they made the Outer Worlds. So what immediately comes to mind to me is, can't we expect them to do more? Can't we expect them or hope that they will do better? Are we okay with them continuing to stagnate in terms of these aspects? Of course, we respect Obsidian. We know that they're great at creating very interesting and thought-provoking stories, really interesting characters, and cool diverging paths. But should we continue to be satisfied with mediocrity in terms of combat? Should we continue to be satisfied in terms of mediocrity in terms of graphical fidelity? I'll be honest with you, I'm willing to let the combat part slide, as in terms of RPGs, because of the sheer size, the sheer amount of enemies, the sheer amount of weapons. It's definitely hard to create a seriously high quality gameplay experience. But at least from the graphical side, at least from the visual side, can we at least have a game that looks absolutely gorgeous and is adhesive and cohesive with the new quality and new standard that have been set by next generation of games? I'll let you cast your mind to The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3, in terms of the narrative side, was pretty damn good, especially considering the player choice and the side quests. It was pretty damn good in terms of the story, in terms of graphical fidelity. And of course, the combat was a bit janky at times, but it was serviceable and solid enough. The only area that The Witcher 3 was slacking in was in terms of the combat, and that isn't their forte. So for they were able to let it slide because of the sheer amount of systems and things you could use, such as the Witcher oils, potions, and all of these other items you can use, the combat was deep and much more interesting. Unfortunately, if we consider Avowed and what Obsidian has produced in general, in terms of graphics, they're not hitting it out of the park. In terms of combat, they're not hitting it out of the park. Narratively and characters, they do a great job. But you need to pick a poison. You need to be lacking just in one area. We can't be lacking so substantially. It doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think it's acceptable. One of the two things needs to improve exponentially. Either the gameplay needs to improve exponentially or the graphics. We can only let one thing slide. You need to pick your struggle, and that struggle for me needs to be one of those aspects. I'd prefer that the graphical fidelity be improved, so at least when I log into the game, I look at something beautiful and drop dead gorgeous. I'll excuse the combat being more so on the mid side, because that's kind of what's been known or accepted in the RPG space. But as I'm saying, pick a struggle, because I can't be cool with this. The art style has changed, and things have definitely changed, and we don't know what the tone is going to be, whether it's still going to be a mature and serious story. I think it is, because this is Obsidian we're talking about. They're very good at telling stories, and even though the world might seem a bit childish, or the color palette and art style may have changed from something that would have expected to be more of a mature story, the mature and tones of the characters and the story might still be maintained. We'll have to find out when we actually get the game, or more trailers are released, or we get an entire gameplay demo. But so far, these are my thoughts on the game, and this is all we really know. So I'm definitely going to be cynical about these two titles, Starfield and Avowed. Definitely very, very skeptical. I'm not going to say they're looking bad, but they're below the expectations that I had. If this is supposed to be Bethesda's flagship game, they're number one, they're top dog. This is the game we're releasing since Fallout 4. The big boy. This is our big release. Then I think to myself, what is the state that Elderscrolls 6 is in? Graphically, is that game even going to be impressive? Like, what is going on? I understand that they prioritize story, quests, and things like that, but the other aspects of the game are extremely important as well. If we're going to get another middling, mediocre graphical experience, or another middling, mediocre gameplay experience in Elder Scrolls 6, yeah, bro, my hype is gonna go all the way down to almost zero, bro. It's, I'm worried. I'm definitely worried, and I'm interested to see what will transpire over the time we wait for the release of these games. Yeah, bro. I'd be honestly not be surprised if by the end of it, and when Starfield is released, that it even struggles to maintain that 30 FPS that they wanted in hopes of consistency. But it is what it is. So guys, those are my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts down there in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you feel about the 30 FPS? How do you feel about the Avowed art style change and the graphical fidelity and the jankiness of that overall game? Just tell me your thoughts down there in the comments, and let's have a dialogue. Take it easy, gents.